In the Land of Eem, monsters are more than just stat blocks. They've got hopes, dreams, aspirations, but most importantly, they're people too.
Welcome back to another episode of Wizards of Eem, and we are talking about monsters, adversaries as we call them. When it boils down to it, monsters, we want to make them characters too. And so the first thing we got to do is give them depth, right?
Yeah, monsters have to have depth.
Personality.
Yeah, right. We approach monsters a little bit like a random encounter. Ben and I aren't huge fans of like a D100 and you're faced with 5 rats that want to eat your brain. In Land of Eem, we try to create a little bit of dynamic between the encounter and the players. And we do the same thing when we're making monsters. They've got to have personalities, motivations, and ultimately a little bit of background.
And when we're creating, all the entries in our bestiary,
there it is.
First thing we think about is how do these creatures act socially? What's their MO when players are interacting with them? Are they going to be sort of friendly? Are they friendly with travelers? Are they reserved? Are they aggressive, hostile? Are they jerks? You want to know the baseline for how this monster type interacts with the world.
Yeah. And another important element is to think of the monsters like people in that they're not all the same. So even though they may have proclivities to be aggressive towards a particular situation or person or player, it doesn't mean that that individual will feel that way about the character themselves.
You could take any monster in any bestiary and put your own spin on it. You don't have to make it exactly like it is in the book. And it's going to be more fun that way when you add your own personality to these things. And you approach that with creativity, through dialogue, tricks.
No, keep rolling, man. Keep rolling.
Through dialogue,
I'll do it. No, but like individual dialogue, for example, Ben and I have always had this character that's like orbiting our universe that's named Eddie the Manticore. And Eddie the Manticore, he's just Eddie. He's just trying to live his life. Sure, he wants to eat people every once in a while, but ultimately he's kind of got a bum rap. He's got a bad gig at a dungeon and he wants to make his way in the world and find his own path.
And he's only eaten a few people.
That's only a few people, not everybody, and they could have been bad guys. So
right.
The idea is that all of these different creatures that you're creating are individuals and you can communicate with them. And that can add an enormous amount of interest to an encounter. And you can even find yourself going down, A, B subplots, like an episode of Seinfeld with Eddie the Manticore, where he's just like, oh my God, I can't believe this guy is, trying to take my pen.
Yeah. I mean, just recently in our own campaign, when James's character, Buddy Boupé, randomly encountered a dragon, in Land of Eem, we always have the option to parlay before any combat goes down. And so Buddy Boupé decided to strike up a deal with the dragon to sort of invest in his gumball empire.
I used some tycoon abilities and rolled really well to not only survive the encounter, but to get a huge investor in my enterprise, which is super funny.
And that's kind of how we approach creatures, monsters, whatever you want to call it. In Land of Eem, we separate all the adversaries into 3 types: creatures, who are, the ones that you can really interact with and speak with. Critters are more animalistic, and creepers are like bugs and stuff. So you probably can't usually talk to critters or creepers. There are exceptions, of course, but we always want to make creatures and open to negotiation. There are a few exceptions, like your liches and but even Sarpathi, like one of the main antagonists of the Mucklands, the snake folk, you could strike deals with them. They're not going to be in your favor because these are really hardcore cultists, right? But the option is there, and it's always more fun when you think about the motivations of your monster.
Yeah, totally. And you can actually find yourself, like, for example, imagine you are crafting like a one-shot with Sarpathi and you want them to be the villain. Well, maybe there's one Sarpathi villain that's pretty strict about what they're trying to achieve and what their objectives are and what their personality is. But it doesn't mean all the guards and all of the, subsequent Sarpathy characters in the orbit of that villain are going to be 100% lockstep. And so that introduces a lot of dynamic engagement and, depending if you're playing Doom and Gloom or Hijinks, a lot of fun as you navigate these different character monsters to achieve your goals and get into trouble.
Right. So we're going to break down how we actually write monsters in our own format. And maybe that will, be useful to you when you're creating custom monsters. Like we said, we think about how they act socially. So in our adversary entries, we've got a big paragraph or two about their social,
or how they interact with players, where they're coming from, really.
Right. And like we said, that's just a guide. When you're actually playing, you could stray from that, but it's really useful to have those hooks.
Yeah. It gives you like a concrete foundation to work from when you're making your own character monsters. You know what I mean?
Yes. And we also have a section on combat. How do they act during combat? What are they trying to achieve normally during combat? What are their tactics? That's always useful as well. And that's usually what you'll get from most bestiaries from other games. That's primarily what they focus on. The other thing we like to think about is how do these monsters act when they win and lose these encounters with the PCs?
Yeah, this is a big one for me.
Yeah.
I like the idea of putting the toolkit into the monster's entry for how a GM can deal with a situation where a monster is victorious over the party. Oh, did they just eat them all? Do they take them to stand trial? Like there's all kinds of different ways that you can deal with a party wipe, party wipe. I'm using my quotes for the podcast, but same with the defeat. You don't have to butcher all of the creatures that you fight. Land of Eem isn't like a murder hobo game at all. It could be that the creatures surrender. They could run away. There's all kinds of things that they could do. And that also introduces, I think, a little bit more of a dynamic relationship between the player and the creature in a way that feels almost similar to it being an NPC, even though they may not have the quest hooks and the story connections.
Yeah. I think about, the vampire in Land of Eem, who's more interested in at least the aristocratic vampire. The bestial vampire will probably just eat you.
Yeah. The ones with the powdered wigs will be cool, but the Nosferatu guy, he's going to.
Right. The ones with the powdered wigs, they just want to be entertained. They would probably be interested in taking you as a servant or something like that.
Now do all of my dishes.
Exactly. You don't always have to go with party wipe. There are more interesting things that can happen as a result of a combat or social interaction.
Right. Totally. So one mini tip, I mentioned like monsters feeling almost like an NPC. In the Land of Eem, that's a good, I think, lens to look at monsters through.
When you're creating a monster, stat blocks, that's the easy part, really. Those are just a bunch of numbers, and you can tune them according to how powerful you want them to be during combat. But the hard part is sort of brainstorming, coming up with cool ideas, new twists on old ideas. I'm going to flip open to a random entry in here. We're going to discuss.
Ladies and gentlemen, I have no idea what entry he's going to flip to. I can't wait to find out. I'm edge of my seat just like you guys are.
We're going to talk about Liger Shark.
Not only am I thrilled that we're talking about the Liger Shark, I didn't expect it.
So obviously what we like to do in Land of Eem, come up with punny, funny names. That's like where we start a lot of times. Ligers, really influenced by Napoleon Dynamite's one of our favorite movies. You got your tiger sharks in real life, but a Liger Shark, that must be huge. A lion and a tiger shark. Mm-hmm. These things are big old sharks. They're like Jaws level sharks at their core. And all right, shark. It's got iron jaws. You know what I mean?
We're cooking with gas. It's got a big old bite, right? That makes a lot of sense. But here's where it gets interesting. Tell us a little bit about how the Liger Shark operates.
Well, Liger sharks, as sharks, they have extremely sensitive noses, and any direct attack would leave them paralyzed.
Nothing social about it.
I should have done a critter.
Yeah, that's critical. We'll keep all this in, but see, we just made a mistake.
Let's go to the Kraken, another sea creature. All right.
Ooh, the mighty Kraken.
Now, we didn't make up Krakens, though there are many different interpretations of them within lore and fiction. And so we went with a, giant Cephalopod. We went with a giant cephalopod.
That's right. No, you got it right.
And socially, they are extremely intelligent. Okay. So intelligent that they sort of can communicate telepathically, and little
They're
is
hugely
known.
developed brains.
Right. They're giant things that could easily crush a ship like this. But they have conversations with sailors. And these conversations are incredibly strange and alien, like talking to the demon of another world. And some of these are vengeful creatures that remember those who have harmed them. So from that as an example, you get this weird conversation starting from a strange beast in the water. And I think that opens up a lot of avenues. If you're playing a nautical campaign, you're a sailor on a ship, and this horrible, well, it doesn't have to be horrible.
Maybe it could be scared. Maybe it thinks it remembers your ship from some time that somebody threw a harpoon into its butt. And you find yourselves, you may have to help the Kraken in some regard. Like I said, NPCs.
Yeah, maybe the Kraken is looking for a ship that wronged it and it wants your help.
And maybe it wants your help and it's being generous, that maybe if you say, I don't know, it'll let you go. Or maybe it wants your help, but you don't have an option. You're being held hostage with the rest of your crew. So it's just giving yourselves wiggle room to see where the story goes with the creature, because it's not just a, sees you, attacks you scenario.
Indeed. So the next time you throw a manticore at your unsuspecting party, have that manticore strike up a conversation. Maybe they want to have a little tea party with the PCs and discuss latest politics, and
they want to discuss, trade negotiations,
but
not real ones, like the ones that you would have in the Phantom Menace.
Surely, Senator. Chancellor.
That's the manticore that we need to make. Like, Chancellor, surely, Senator, you would like Earl Grey over peppermint. I'm a chamomile guy. Hey, royal charm. So in a nutshell, some of the key takeaways for creating dynamic monsters that are not just out to eat you is think of the monsters as having a personality. Think of them as a person. Think about how they would treat victory against the PCs, how they would treat defeat, and how they would treat each other and just exist in social situations. That's the sort of thinking that we put into our brains when we're trying to create monsters, because we see it playing out on the table in really fun and interesting ways. And it's never the same, even if you encounter the same creature, you find yourselves just opening up the door to a world of wonder and delight and possibilities. So thanks again for tuning in to the Wizards of Eem podcast. We've been James and Ben.
Yes, we have.
And if you're interested in checking out Land of Eem, you can download the Quick Start Guide for free at landofelem.com. You can buy the beautiful box set from exaltedfuneral.com, or you can check out the PDFs on Drive-Thru RPG.
Thanks so much. Until next time. Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.